Well, howdy there, Internet students. This is Mr. Hermanson again. Today we're going to do part 2 of lesson 6.1b, and we left off right on this page right here. Basically, we're going to try and learn how to solve square root equations. And just some basics about this. So remember that you have a positive and a negative square root. So when we write this, and say we put a 49 in there, we're talking about the positive square root of 49, which is equal to 7. So if I do this and leave it an x, so I'm wondering what the positive square root of what number equals something, like 7, then that x, you could tell from the previous example, is 49. So in this first problem, the answer is 49. X equals 49. Now, if you want to think about the inverse operation to get that, all you have to do is say, all right, then that means the number inside there, the x, is equal to whatever the answer is squared, because the squared is the inverse of the square root, and 7 squared is equal to 49. Now you have to be careful because we're doing positive square roots here. If I would have put this, the absolute, or the square root of what number equals -7, well, that can't happen because we're talking about the positive square root. The only way I can get a negative is if I had a negative in front of this to begin with. Now we can answer it. Now 49 works for this. X would equal 49 because the negative square root of 49 is -7. All right, so think about that as we're doing the problems. And basically, I just kind of want you to think about these answers, to use your brain to think about what's going on here. Remember that the square root tells you what number times itself equals something. So look at this and see if you can figure out what the answer is. Since the square root of 25, the positive square root of 25 is equal to 5, the answer, you can see, is x equals 25. All right, now here you have to think about a little bit more. You have to think about adding 8 to it after you figure out what number goes in here. And then you want to end up with -6. Well, if you add 8 to something and you end up with -6, the thing you're starting with has to be -14, right? Because -14 plus 8 equals -6. Now there's the problem. You need the square root of x to equal -14, the positive square root of x. That can't happen. So there's no solution. All right, so go ahead and try the next one. Think about what this would have to be to make this work and see if you can find an answer. So in order to get 0, you would have to add -2.3 to 2.3, right? And so I need this thing right here to equal this thing right here. So I need the square root of x to equal -2.3. Well, that's not going to happen because this is a positive square root of x. So once again, there's no answer to this one. All right, let's try another one. So in here, think about what would you have to have underneath that radical sign to have it equal 5? So the square root of what number? Think about that first. So I hope you're thinking that the square root of 25 is 5. That is correct. So you need this x plus 2 to equal 25. And the only way that's going to happen is if x is equal to 23. So checking your answer, 23, put 23 there, add 2, that's 25, and then do the square root of that. Square root of 25 is 5. Okay? Go ahead and see if you can come up with the answer to the next one. I hope you said there's no real solution to that because there is no number multiplied by itself that equals a negative. So there's no real solution to that one. Okay. The next one's kind of tricky. I think there's two answers. See if you can find them. Just think about what this is saying. X squared, so some number times itself equals 64. All right, the number multiplied by itself that equals 64 could be either negative 8 or 8. Either of those work. So thinking about that there is probably two solutions that this one would also. You have to think about this, though, that you're multiplying 3 times whatever your x squared is here. So you have to think about what number times 3 is 48 first. See if you can get that. So 3 times 16 would be 48, so that means your x squared has to be 16. So that's why I wrote x squared equals 16. And you can get that by doing 48 divided by 3 if you want to work backwards. All right, and then now we can tell that x must be 4 because 4 times 4 is 16. But x could also be equal to negative 4 because negative 4 times 4. So this is showing the undoing process for finding the answer. To undo a square root, you multiply the number by itself. Remember doing this earlier? The square root of x squared is equal to x. Okay, so if you square it, you'll actually get rid of that square root and just end up with what's in the square root. And then all you have to do, so we're going to write here square the numbers. Okay, and so when you do one side squared, you also have to do the other side squared to keep it evened out. And then the next thing we're going to do after that is we're going to take away the 3 here and subtract the 3. That would be backtracking. All right. Okay, I think you're ready to finish up those homework problems. Go ahead and do that. I think you're starting like right here and doing the rest of them. Just try to figure out what the solution is by reasoning it. And sometimes there is no solution, remember that. All right, good luck with that.